Hello, this is Tony Heller from RealClimateScience.com. Many of the top climate scamsters receive large sums of money from Bill Gates. National Public Radio has received more than $24 million, and The Guardian newspaper has received more than $12 million. And not surprisingly, The Guardian is very upset about free speech on Twitter. They ran this article a few days ago. #ClimateScam. Denialism claims flooding Twitter have scientists worried. They say that many researchers are fleeing the platform due to a surge in climate misinformation. I could write an entire encyclopedia documenting climate misinformation published by The Guardian over the last few decades. But in this video, I'm just going to share a few of my favorites. On August 21st, 2018, they wrote this headline: Arctic's strongest sea ice breaks up for the first time on record. And they included this picture of some Arctic sea ice. And then a few weeks later they published this article: Canada sea ice prevents crucial supply deliveries to isolated communities. Authorities in Canada's Arctic North are scrambling to transport critical supplies to 3 isolated communities after the early arrival of sea ice prevented delivery barges from reaching their destination. And the picture they used is almost identical to the picture from the previous article. So according to The Guardian, too much ice and too little ice look almost exactly the same. Here's another of my favorites. Coral reefs will be overwhelmed by rising oceans. Study finds fragile marine ecosystems cannot grow fast enough to keep pace with sea levels. But meanwhile, back in the real world, islands comprised of coral, like the Maldives, have been growing over the past 6 decades. Over the past 20,000 years, sea levels risen about 120 meters or 400 feet, but the coral reefs are still there. From 16,000 years ago to 7,000 years ago, sea level was rising much faster than it is now. When sea level rises, coral reefs grow upwards. And when sea level falls, coral reefs expand horizontally. This is one of my favorites from a year ago when they said rivers in Australia would never have a lot of water in them again. But these people might disagree. This picture was taken a few weeks ago. 9 years ago, The Guardian said that polar bear numbers in the Hudson Bay were on the verge of collapse. But according to the Inuits, none of the polar bear populations in Canada are shrinking, while 9 of the 13 are increasing. There are a lot more polar bears now than there was 40 years ago. Here's a good one from The Guardian last year. 60 years of climate change warnings, the signs that were missed and ignored. But if Guardian writers knew anything about the history of their own newspaper, they would have known that 50 years ago The Guardian was warning about a new ice age. Rewriting history is a critical part of the Guardian agenda. 10 years ago, The Guardian announced the permanent drought in the United Kingdom. In 2004, The Guardian said that the climate of Britain would be Siberian by the year 2020. In 2013, The Guardian said the Arctic would be ice-free by the year 2015, and there would be a methane catastrophe. The Guardian also said the Arctic would be ice-free by the year 2016. After their prior predictions failed, they said the Arctic would be ice-free by 2017 or 2018. But there's more sea ice now than there was this week 15 years ago when Al Gore won the Nobel Prize and predicted an ice-free Arctic by the year 2014.
Another new study to be presented by U.S. Navy researchers later this week warns it could happen in as little as 7 years. 7 years from now. In the last few months, it has been harder and harder to misinterpret the signs that our world is spinning out of kilter.
In 2010, The Guardian said the Greenland ice sheet faced a tipping point by the year 2020. And they showed this picture of an iceberg calving off of the Petermann Glacier in northern Greenland. Over the past 10 years, the Petermann Glacier has been steadily growing and is now about 10 kilometers longer than it was in the year 2012. The Guardian didn't do very well with that prediction either. Besides being a primary source of misinformation about climate, The Guardian is also promoting vandalism in support of their scam. The Guardian has been printing climate misinformation consistently just about every day for the past 20 years. And they don't like people calling them out on their fraud. They're getting paid a lot of money by Bill Gates to print this climate nonsense. So they have an editorial policy of not printing any information which disputes the scam which they're pushing. The Guardian is one of the primary proponents of cancel culture, and at the same time they say there's no such thing. Let's see what's trending under hashtag climate scam on Twitter right now. Polar bear populations are increasing, but they don't want you to know. Greta sitting in first class on a fossil-fueled powered electric train, eating tropical fruit transported thousands of miles on a diesel-powered ship, and everything wrapped in plastic made from fossil fuels. This tweet is actually one I made a few years ago, which is being recycled. Man-made climate change, the made-up catastrophe the globalist socialists use to instill fear and guilt to tax, regulate, and remove our freedoms while pretending to be saving the planet. Here's one from Steve Malloy showing how the IPCC tampered with their sea ice graphs between 1990 and 2001. Here's one from me. 50 years ago today, 42 top American and European investigators wrote a letter to President Nixon warning of glacial temperatures in about a century. And another one from me. If we were having an actual climate emergency like during the 1930s, people would need fake government graphs to become aware of it. A few days ago, Salon tweeted, "Deadly heat waves engulfed the planet this year. Climate change is a national security crisis." And I responded, in 1921, deadly heat waves engulfed the planet. Heat waves are not climate change, they're the same weather we've always had. It's not surprising that The Guardian is upset about climate scam trending on Twitter. Before Elon Musk bought Twitter, it was much easier for The Guardian to propagate their climate misinformation. Toto's been pulling back the curtain on bad journalism at The Guardian for the past 14 years. You can visit him, Kyrie Caesar, Toki Upala, and the 4 new puppies on the web at realclimatescience.com.